you guys, I know in my last book review video, I just watched it back a few days ago, and I realized that I sounded super unenthusiastic. So I wanted to let you guys know that it's just kind of a rough time of year for me as far as being sick and kind of grungy feeling. I have pretty bad allergies, and from about September to March, through all of those big, huge seasonal changes, I stay kind of gross and funky. I have a lot of congestion, a lot of coughing and hacking and sniffles and stuff. So if I do a review video and I don't sound super excited, but I'm like, this was a great book, you guys should read it, don't believe my tone of voice, just believe what I say. And speaking of fantastic books that I think you should read, I mentioned in my last video, oh crud, I lost the cover image. 2 shakes. I mentioned The Diviners by Libba Bray in my last video as my most anticipated book to read in September. So I was really excited to finish it this week. It took forever, mainly because, like I said, I kept getting distracted by other novels such as Everybody Sees the Ants, which I just did a review for and will be posting in a couple of days. Not to mention just life and things like that. And it's a really long book. It's 600 pages in print, and my e-novel was 466 pages. So that's a lot of words on the page and a lot of things to read and process. Not to mention that it's kind of not complicated, but complex. There's a lot of things that happen. There are a lot of things that go on, and Libba Bray does such a fantastic job of weaving stories together that you are so completely caught up that you want to rush through and read it, like I'm prone to do, as mentioned in my previous video, and you also just want to stop and savor it. And actually, the last 15 pages took me probably 2 days to read just because I didn't want the story to end. And I kept just dragging it on, and I would read like 2 paragraphs or a page, and then I'd be like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go look at my reader queue on Google, or I'm gonna play on Tumblr for a little while, or I'm gonna watch a video rather than read this book because I just didn't want the story to end. Takes place in the 1920s, which is a difficult thing because while it's a historical novel and it's very historically accurate in a lot of ways, it's also a paranormal. There's a serial killer going on, so there's a whole other murder mystery plot. And the main characters in the cast are called diviners, and they're people who have extraordinary powers. So that's a lot of bang for your buck, and it's a lot of things to work into a novel that you're trying to keep as accurate as possible with such a really popular and well-known time period. It's set in the 1920s during Prohibition, so there are speakeasies and there are jazz clubs and there is segregation and lack of alcohol, but the desire to drink alcohol, and then you're adding on top of those plots a serial killer, people with superpowers, a museum of creepy crawlies, which I think personally sounds fascinating. I don't understand why that's not a real thing. So if anybody has a lot of information on various paranormal sightings, historical articles about those things, I encourage you to start a museum so that I can visit it. Because my needs need to be met at all times. Not really, but I do think it would be really fascinating. When you read the book, the Museum of Creepy Crawlies sounds like the kind of place I would want to go and visit in New York City and stay forever. Also New York City, so that's another big deal place that most people, even if they haven't been, have a lot of information about. Libba Bray does such a great job weaving this story in and out. There are multiple characters that the story kind of follows through. The main character being Evie, who is just a darling flapper girl who is difficult to like a lot of the time, but who you also root for and you really want good things to happen with. So it's like the whole time you want to kind of like pinch her head off and smack her around a little bit and be like, what are you doing, crazy pants? But simultaneously you kind of want to be her best friend and go with her places and hang out with her. So there's Evie, who is basically sent away by her parents to live with her Uncle Will in New York City because of just trouble she's caused in her own hometown. When she gets to live with her Uncle Will, she meets his assistant Jericho. Her best friend Mabel lives in the same building. And there's another girl who is a Siegfried girl named Theda, and her brother Henry. So that's 5. There's also Memphis, his younger brother Isaac, and Sam, who is a thief that Evie meets fresh off the train at Grand Central Station. So there's our cast of characters, and all of them seem to have a little something extra. Memphis used to be a healer. Theta has some powers that are never really addressed. Evie is able to touch things and tell you about the person whose object it belonged to. So the whole story kind of, there's a prophecy about how there's a time coming when the diviners will need to stand against an ambiguous him because danger is coming and he will come. You have a serial killer who is doing a ritualistic rite to bring the Antichrist. He's murdering people that fit this prophetic description, and then he's ingesting their body parts, so that's kind of cannibalistic and disgusting. You have just the personal relationships are so fantastic. The friendships that grow, the social boundaries that they push in a lot of ways. Mabel's parents are socialists, maybe? I don't have any notes this time, so I'm trying to remember everything from a 400-page book or a 500-page book, and I can't get all of them right. But her parents do these regular protests against the man and just like stand up against that. So Mabel's got this like straight-laced thing going on. Well, kind of straight-laced. Like her parents are super strict, but they're also like rebelling against the government, but not because of prohibition. It's a mess. Sam has this whole backstory where his mother disappeared. There's just a lot going on, and it's the first book of at least 2, probably 3. I can't remember off the top of my head. The main plot is the serial killer. Will has a friend who is a detective who comes to him for help because it's clearly a ritualistic killing, and as an expert on creepy crawlies, Will has a lot of extra information for that. And they come to him for help, and Evie, of course, convinces them because she's a vivacious young girl who wants to be in the middle of absolutely everything. She convinces them that they should take her along. So there's the whole story of trying to find this murderer, trying to discover their powers. There's this whole subtext between Will giving them information about what's going on with the diviners and that prophecy, and also trying to keep things from them. He really tries to discourage Evie from using any kind of powers that she might have and exhibit. And you don't know why. There's a lot of mystery, even at the end of the first novel when the murder and the serial killing is wrapped up in a bow. It just opens up a whole nother level of just the whole plot. And you know that invariably the second book is going to just be filled with as much intrigue and excitement. Like I said, that seems like a really weird review. I feel like I summed up a lot of stuff and didn't say very much. Great characters, great setting, great history, boys that are hot without shirts on, fantasy, speakeasies, jazz, poetry. I mean, this book seems to have everything that you could possibly want in a book, except for like modern realistic fiction. So if you like anything that's not modern realistic fiction, this is the book for you to read. It was just fantastic, and I really, really enjoyed it quite a lot. So, The Diviners by Libba Bray. Gave it a 5 stars on GoodReads, which is the best I can do. Like I said, it was the most anticipated book I did this year. I read this September. So, if you like it, check it out. Let me know. Bye.